Last week in our special report, we saw how the absence of affordable daycare can deter parents from having kids. Today we investigate the government policy behind the government's drive to create more affordable quasi-public nursery schools.
The plan recruits private preschools and kindergartens, granting subsidies in exchange for a measure of control in their operations. Can this plan be a lifeline for Taiwan's childcare crisis? Here's part 2 of our report on Taiwan's daycare industry.
去把你的东西放上，该放进厨房的放到厨房去哦。拿不到衣服那边，衣服那边。
Mr. Li lives in Kaohsiung. He has 2 daughters and life is sweet, but all this comes at a price. He sends his kids to a private nursery school and it takes a hefty cut from his paycheck.
我觉得整体来讲，压力应该还是来自于整个经济。
I think if you look at our situation, the pressure is mainly financial. We enrolled our older daughter as a toddler, so by now she's spent 4 years in preschool. If you look back at the expenses, it's quite frightening. It's nearly 200,000 NT dollars a year. So after 4 years, I've spent the equivalent of a car.
Taiwan's daycare problem has had a direct effect on the birth rate. According to statistics compiled by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, Taiwan's birth rate is 3rd lowest in the world, after Singapore and Macau. It's so low that Taiwan officials have deemed it a national security issue. This July, the Executive Yuan introduced a policy to counter the declining birth rate. One measure aims to subsidize private daycare so that they are more affordable. Under the subsidy scheme, private schools that had charged parents up to 10,000 NT a month before are able to knock down their fees to 4,500 NT.
4500块去我们的非营利幼儿园跟我们的公立幼儿园。
4,500 NT is close to the fees charged at non-profit nursery schools and public nursery schools. I think that most parents would feel that such tuition is affordable.
This quasi-public model is something that parents yearn for. Essentially, it gives the government a shortcut. For the government, setting up public nursery schools one by one is an arduous and very lengthy process.
To be in the scheme, private nursery schools need to follow government rules on price and quality. It's a tall order, and so far, the takers have been far and few between.
因为我们没有得到任何的诱因。
There is no incentive for us. There's nothing to encourage us to join. In fact, there's a disincentive. Now I'm collecting less money, but my costs remain high, and I won't see the government's money for 2, 3 months, or even half a year. In the meantime, all I have is that small amount of money parents pay me. How am I going to pay my teachers?
Currently, private nursery schools only need to file average insured salary of 25,000 NT a month. But under the Executive Yuan subsidy scheme, private schools will need to raise that amount to 29,000 NT. This change is another factor that deters private nursery schools from joining.
学校自己学校的师资设计，但是你一旦政府
Each school has its own pay structure. But the government steps in, and instead of giving me an actual subsidy, it only makes up the shortfall in the fee we previously received from parents. And we are left to shoulder the expense for teachers' benefits. I think that every school has its own policies, and the government shouldn't just step in and dictate how much I should pay my teachers. This is not right.
The school's interest in joining the program is one thing. Whether they qualify in the first place is another issue entirely.
我一开始的时候其实蛮期待的，可是后来我发现它的 At first I was full of hope, but then I found that only schools who charge between 8,000 to 10,000 NT qualify to join. That's when I realized I wouldn't benefit, because my son's school charges 16,000 NT. No matter how much the teachers try, there's no way they can take their regular rate down to 10,000 NT. So my nursery school won't be signing anything with the government, which means I won't be seeing any of that subsidy.
In Taipei and Hsinchu cities, the median monthly tuition of nursery schools is above 10,000 NT, according to a survey carried out by the Ministry of Education last year.
我们在今年年底也会来评估。
At the end of this year, we will assess a small number of schools, a fraction of schools, to find out where exactly the higher costs come from. We'll see if they can make a certain degree of adjustment to their rates.
It takes a long time to set up one public nursery school, and many parents can't afford to wait. The concept of the quasi-public nursery schools seems to promise a shortcut, but critics fear they will come at the expense of creating more public nurseries.
你看那个教育部编的预算在计划上面很有趣，就是
If you look at the Education Ministry's budget, you'll notice something quite interesting. 5 billion NT dollars a year is earmarked for nonprofit and public nursery schools, and 10 billion NT dollars is set aside to support quasi-public schools. So you might end up devoting a lot of effort to setting up quasi-public schools and neglecting the public ones.
The government is prepared to spend big, but will it pay off? The new subsidy program is far from the silver bullet, but it does shed light on how much more has to be done for childcare relief.